It's Mr. Kelly with Good to the Hood, talking about anything and everything that impacts the culture. And today I want to talk a little bit about how the black community is being impacted by coronavirus, or COVID-19. And it's really been a big issue, especially in this past couple of weeks, and one that's been getting a little bit more of attention. And there's a couple reasons I think why the black community is more so impacted than others. Now, I've been doing a little bit of reading, I've been hearing a couple things on the news and so on and so forth, like, probably many of you. So by no means am I a doctor or anything like that, but I have a couple opinions on why it is what it is. And one of the big reasons why I think is, as a whole, statistically speaking, blacks have less healthcare options, and even those with health options, as far as medical insurance and that kind of thing. In the black community, it's really a big stigma to even go to the doctor. As maybe stereotypical as that may sound, I mean, it's true. I remember growing up with my father and my grandfather. They went to the doctor probably more than some of my friends. But I mean, that's not saying much. I mean, I had friends whose parents were also in the military, and they would just never go. I mean, even if they were sick, they're like, "No, we'll wait it out." Or there's a lot of home remedies if you're from down south. Nobody's going to the doctor. I mean, you have to almost be near death to go to the doctor. Everything's drink some juice, get some rest, take some Robitussin for everything. Like, that's the catch-all. So I think that plays into it a little bit. I'm not going to say that plays into it a whole lot, but it definitely plays its part. Another piece that I would say is that I also read in the Washington Post is that the black community, proportionately, there's more of us working in your entry-level essential jobs. That I actually can believe. As you may have heard on some of my other videos, I work at an international airport, typically graveyard shift. So truthfully, the majority of the people that I see actually are black. When it's throwing baggage on the planes, janitorial, maintenance, dishwashing, servers, bartenders, cooks even. Like, at the international airport that I work at, easy, a third, if not half of the population is black that work in all of those positions. Now, mind you, of course, in any given state, blacks are the minority, only making up, on average, anywhere from 10 to 20% of the total population. Only 13% of the total population in the U.S. So I think that feeds into it as well. And just bad information, I think, would be the third thing. For a long time on Twitter, it was trending, and people were saying, and I still see it on there now, that blacks can't get coronavirus. That's the dumbest thing ever. But for the longest time, people were falling into that, especially young people. And I think it goes, the way that it works, a lot of times why this works is a lot of young people will go to parties or hang out or kind of ignore the stay-at-home orders. And it's not necessarily about them getting it per se, although that's important, but it's more important about who you're carrying it to. So if you're in your 20s or 30s, and you're ignoring all of this and putting yourself at risk, and you're not washing your hands, and you're not staying at home, you're not going out only when you need to, and that kind of thing, and you're just kind of ignoring it because you kind of fell into the whole thing's a hoax, then you're carrying it to someone where it does make a difference. Somebody with an autoimmune deficiency or autoimmune disease, asthma, young children, elderly. It's not always about if you catch it. It's about who you pass it on to. And I think the reason why that's even a bigger deal, so to speak, in the black community is because, again, statistically speaking, blacks usually live in more densely packed areas. So now there's just a whole bunch of us in one area. Your inner cities, where the population density is just real intense. Plus, in my experience and everybody that I know, we have more densely populated, even just in the homes, because we have multi-generational people in the home. So it might be mom, dad, and kids, but sometimes there's an aunt and uncle in there, maybe a grandparent. Statistically speaking, in the black community, we're not known to put our elderly or our grandparents in old folks' homes. Overall, okay, so these are like catch-all responses. So you figure if in a house, if the average household in the black community has, say, 6 people in it, 2 of them being elderly, right? That would make sense, and it's even more of a bigger deal not to carry it back. And so, all right, so in Louisiana, African Americans make up 32% of the total population in the state. But 70% of the people that have died from coronavirus have been black. Okay, and then my last little stat here, because again, I didn't want to do a whole lot of stats. 40% of the coronavirus deaths in Louisiana were in the New Orleans area, where the majority of those residents are black. Okay, and I think there's you can see a pattern like that if you go through the news and look at various states. If you look at New York, if you look at Atlanta, you look at Alabama, that kind of thing. So one of the reasons for that, again, is statistically speaking, specifically it says here in those states that I mentioned, in those areas, it's health. Again, so if you have it, your health has a big deal to do with it. Like in the beginning, they were saying a lot of people that were in their 30s and 40s weren't contracting it and dying, but they're seeing that actually now in the black community, if you're in your 30s and 40s, you're at a higher risk of really being negatively affected by it or dying because of poor health. And so one of the things is the average black person in America is not health. 46% of blacks have heart disease, 70% are overweight. And because of those 2 reasons alone, 60% are more likely to have diabetes. The rate for whites is around 8%. So that's a big disparity. And when you have poor eating habits, poor health, poor access to health care, more than likely to have essential jobs, living in densely populated areas that are multi-generational, there's just a whole lot, all of that together is a ticking time bomb and more detrimental, okay? So it's good to be more aware. I mean, then of course you throw in there poor information where people are just thinking that black people can't be affected by COVID-19, which is like crazy. Fortunately, nobody I know ever bought into that, but absolutely, if you have Twitter or Facebook, you saw that, like people just saying all kinds of nonsense about that. Maybe some people were joking, but enough people took it serious because it was convenient, right? So the whole thing is, we're still I believe, not even in the middle of how bad this pandemic thing can get. I don't know where you live, but if it's anywhere like where I live, it's gotten to the point now where people are kind of taking it for granted. We've been on these stay-at-home orders for quite a while, and people are getting cabin fever, and people are getting tired of it. The weather's actually turning better in most places, so people are going out more. And they're like, oh, okay, well, my buddy's not showing any symptoms, so you guys are kind of hanging out. That's a tricky game and a rough game to play. If you got to go to work, you got to go to work, But if not, I mean, you got to figure out other ways to just live and get by with it. So we'll see what comes in the future here. But there's definitely a concern that it's having a huge effect on the black community. Blacks are getting infected and dying at a disproportionate rate, specifically per capita. So that's what you want to look at. I don't have all the numbers, but you want to look at per capita, because it may be a situation where one people group, maybe it's, just to make math easy, let's say 100 people are catching it in a certain area. And then in that same area, say 60 people are black, have caught it. Okay, well the number's higher, but if you look, for the other people group, but if you look per capita proportionately, that's where you'll really see what the deal is. And so just be careful, take care of each other, get information. Like I've said before on other episodes, go to the CDC website, go to the World Health Organization website, talk to actual doctors in your local area, and then make an assessment as far as what you need to do, what you need to believe, so on and so forth. But definitely just be cautious. But this is Mr. Kelly, Good to the Hood. Do me a favor, hit the subscribe button if you would. And that's all. Peace.